The divine poet, Dante, famously told us that there is no greater sorrow than to recall good times during times of misery. And right now, if we're talking about politics, things are pretty miserable. Even down to, forget about who's president, forget about the policies, even down to the erasure of President Trump's Twitter account. And nevertheless, I want to recall the good times. I want to look back on those wonderful 4 years. Forget about the policy, forget about the diplomacy. I want to look back on 4 years of President Trump's tweets. Let's get started. We're not going to have time to get through all of these tweets. There are so many good ones. This is just one small fraction of all the great tweets. To begin, though, classic. Happy Cinco de Mayo. The best taco bowls are made in Trump Tower Grill. I love Hispanics. I love it. At the time, you had all these really fancy Republicans, and they said, oh my gosh, this is so offensive. It's not offensive at all. It was both very funny and really leveled with people and with Hispanic voters, right? Instead of trying to dance around the issue, he said, hey, Hispanic voters, I want you to vote for me. I like your food, and I like that you're in America, and I like that we're going to Americanize your food, and you should come eat taco bowls at Trump Tower. And it's so promoting of his own brand. I think it's just great. It's so funny, classic Trump. And he made inroads with Hispanic voters, even though people said he was going to destroy the GOP with Hispanic voters. Next one. Trump writing about Representative Rashida Tlaib. Tlaib wrote a letter to Israeli officials desperately wanting to visit her grandmother. Permission was quickly granted, whereupon Tlaib obnoxiously turned the approval down. A complete setup. The only real winner here is Tlaib's grandmother. She doesn't have to see her now. This is a minor political scandal, but at the time it was a big deal, where they said Rashida Tlaib, because she hates Israel, isn't going to be allowed to go in to visit her mother in the disputed territories in Israel, or her grandmother rather. And so then, the U.S. government and Israel, they say, okay, fine, Tlaib, you can come. And she goes, oh, I don't want to do that. I just want to showboat. I said, well, good. Now she doesn't have to see her now. Next one. While not at all presidential, I must point out that the sloppy Michael Moore show on Broadway was a total bomb and was forced to close. Sad. You have to include this. There are so many tweets that ended with sad. Trump's tweeting of sad actually made that a punchline. Like I would hear this, I would do it myself. Whenever you'd have some sort of bad news, you'd say such and such, sorry, Johnny, we can't go to dinner tonight. Sad. There was something, they always said this wasn't presidential because the president of the United States should not reach down, and answer his critics in this way. But Trump doesn't care. Trump's an absolute fighter. He calls him sloppy Michael Moore and always goes after the ratings. And this was actually a secret with Trump. The reason they couldn't kick him off social media is because he was just so popular, and the reason that the news cameras couldn't turn off him, why CNN couldn't stop covering him. He was great for ratings, and all those other guys were very bad for ratings. That is a true showman and politician. Not much of a difference. Next one. In the beautiful Midwest, wind chill temperatures are reaching minus 60 degrees, the coldest ever recorded. In coming days, expected to get even colder. People can't last outside even for minutes. What the hell is going on with global warming? Please come back fast. We need you. So I love it because he's making a joke out of it, and I think politics goes down a little easier when you make it funny, and Trump is extremely funny, funniest president we've ever had. I also liked it because all the fancy people said, oh, please, pish posh, climate and weather are different. Weather has nothing to do with climate. And because Trump is saying, look, why is it so cold out? I thought it was global warming. But you notice all those fancy people who have this sophisticated distinction. Anytime there is any kind of weather event, warm weather or hurricane or something, any weather event that they think can be exploited to justify their climate theory, then they always cite it. Then weather and climate are the same thing. But then when you cite weather in the opposite direction, then weather and climate are completely different. Very, very funny stuff. Next one. Why would Kim Jong-un insult me by calling me old when I would never call him short and fat? Oh well, I try so... I can't even get through this one. This was one of my favorites at the time. Oh well, I try so hard to be his friend, and maybe someday that will happen. See, the only way to deal with a lunatic dictator of a nuclear power overseas is to make yourself seem just as crazy, right? To make yourself so unpredictable. This actually was the Trump foreign policy, was be unpredictable. And by the way, Trump had greater foreign policy achievements than any president in our lifetime, perhaps with the exception of George H.W. Bush. He might, certainly since George H.W. Bush, no one had better foreign policy achievements than Trump. And just who does that? I would never call him short and fat. I try so hard to be his friend. Another Kim Jong-un one. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un just stated that the nuclear button is on his desk at all times. Will someone from his depleted and food-starved regime please inform him that I too have a nuclear button, but it is a much bigger and more powerful one than his, and my button works? People were furious. The fancy people in America, they were so upset, foreign policy stuff. You can't say that! You're threatening! The entire purpose of having a nuclear arsenal is that the credible threat of violence will stop the other guy from doing something rash. The entire purpose of having a nuclear arsenal is this tweet. But for so long, you had these weak, ignorant politicians who would come out and say, no, we would never use nuclear weapons. Well, if you would never use them, what's the point of having them? They're only a provocation if you would never use them. Trump obviously understood he would have peace through strength. And he also understood that he would have political rule through humor. Next one. This one was so brilliant because it was multimedia. Look at this photograph. Look at this photograph is playing into this Nickelback, playing into Hunter Biden, there's so many memes in this meme. I assume Dan Scavino or one of these other sort of social media advisors had something to do with this one, and then Trump played into it. Really, really smart stuff. And this actually, I know we're all laughing about it now. This will be studied in political science courses in universities, that kind of media use. In the same way that FDR is studied for using the radio, Trump will be studied for that kind of multimedia on the social networks. Next one. This one's a little self-serving for us at the Daily Wire. American hero, and it was Trump putting the Medal of Honor on the dog that killed al-Baghdadi. Really terrific. This became a big scandal. They called us a fake news site because because the left-wingers thought we were trying to seriously convince people that President Trump gave the Medal of Honor, something that totally exists, to a dog.
This is Armageddon.
Really funny. Glad the president enjoyed it. We certainly did too. Next one. Beautiful weather all over our great country. A perfect day for all women to march. Get out there now to celebrate the historic milestones and unprecedented economic success and wealth creation that has taken place over the last 12 months. Lowest female unemployment in 18 years. Now, the thing I don't like about this tweet is I don't care about female unemployment. I think women should be perfectly entitled to stay home and raise a family. I don't think it's a mark of a great society that we send all of our women out to work in the factories and be middle managers at the widget company. However, Trump's just trolling them, right? There's the Women's March, which is just explicitly anti-Trump. He's saying, yes, get out there and celebrate all my great achievements. Very funny stuff. Next one. I was actually sticking up for sleepy Joe Biden while on foreign soil. Kim Jong-un called him a low IQ idiot and many other things. Whereas I related the quote of Chairman Kim as a much softer, low IQ individual. Who could possibly be upset with that? Why? I don't know. He did. He actually did. He did help him out. It was very, very kind of him. And frankly, either of those quotes, I think, are giving Mr. Biden probably a little too much credit. I just love when Trump does it sort of with a smirk, like, what? What, me? Who, me? Like Alfred E. Newman. Next one, of course, this is a classic. This may actually be the best one. Despite the constant negative press, covfefe. I thought this actually summed up sort of the Trump approach to politics, which is presumably he just had a typo, whatever, and he sent it by accident. And then he just left it up. He left it up for like 12 hours. And then the next day he joked about it. He says, what does covfefe mean? I don't know. Who can tell us? That is actually, right. If he were worried about the negative press, he'd have deleted it right away and explained it. But he doesn't care about the negative press. Despite the constant negative press, covfefe, good advice to all of us. And then my single absolute favorite President Trump tweet. This was from April 17th, 2017. A great book for your reading enjoyment, Reasons to Vote for Democrats by Michael J. Knowles. The way that this tweet came about, I had just published this blank book. It had jumped up Amazon. I go on Fox and Friends in the morning. It's 4 a.m. or so in LA. So in the East Coast, 7 o'clock or something. And I go on, do the thing, and we'd already done the joke about the blank book. So they asked me about President Trump. I complimented something he had done. And then I saw there was a sort of misquote of what I had said, but it came out from the president's Twitter account. And then right afterward, an endorsement of the book. And I thought, oh my goodness gracious, this president is the most transparent and accessible president we have ever seen. He is actually up there, actually manning the station, watching Fox News in the morning, telling jokes, having a good time with it. That is the sort of language of a guy who was thriving in the job, who really enjoyed the job. Some presidents, they seem to hate it and they get angry and crestfallen, and not Trump. He seemed to become more and more alive, and we're going to miss it. I enjoyed every minute of those tweets. Goodbye, President Trump Twitter account. You are gone, but you will not be forgotten.